Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I want to say good morning to everybody. I hope you guys are having a great day. It's so good to see you. And in case you're wondering what my shirt says, it says "Because We're Black." I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but I'm actually in a hotel right now. I'm actually visiting Denver for a day, and then I'm going to head out and get ready to go to Los Angeles for the Black Wealth Boot Camp that's going to happen March 10th and 11th. It's a 2-day deep dive intensive training on Black wealth, focus on my new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. So if you want to fly in, fly on in. I'll be in Los Angeles this weekend, and we have a few more passes available if you'd like to join us. So anyway, guys, shout out the city that you're from. Let me know what city you're from. Good morning, El Hodge. How are you? Put your B1 in the chat. B1 stands for Black First. Black First means that we put our community at the top of our priority list. Black First means that our economics, our politics, our education is centered on our children. Black First means that we love ourselves. We don't hate anybody else. We just love ourselves. So if you are Black First, then put a B1 in the chat. Good morning. Also, let me know if you can hear me okay. Give me a yes in chat if you can hear me okay, so I can make sure I'm coming through all right. All right, so how many of you have heard about this lawsuit that Fox News is being hit with? Fox News is being body slammed right now pretty bad in federal court over this $1.6 billion lawsuit, claiming that they were deliberately lying about the 2020 election. Anybody see that? Give me a yes in the chat if you saw this lawsuit. It's really fascinating. It's being conducted by a company called Dominion. Dominion was a company that was basically the target of a lot of Fox News smears during the 2020 election, where they were claiming that Dominion had rigged voter machines, that Dominion was part of this vast conspiracy to make sure that Donald Trump got into office. It's kind of crazy. I mean, the lawsuit's really fascinating. And what's fascinating is not that the lawsuit was filed. That's not the most fascinating part to me. The most fascinating part, because everybody, if you accuse them of doing something bad, they're going to say, I didn't do it. What's fascinating is that Fox News is pretty much on the stand admitting that they lied. They're admitting that the higher ups knew that the election results were done and that it was over, and they kept pushing the conspiracy theory. And this is really fascinating. And so anyway, I've been reading up on this lawsuit, and there were a couple of thoughts I wanted to share about this because I think it's really an interesting point about money and how money can influence choices, not just personal choices, but also choices at the corporate level. It's really crazy. Now, by the way, one of you said you could not hear me. Give me a guess if you can hear me okay. Let me know if I need to talk louder or something like that. I saw one person that said they can't hear me. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. And also, if you actually want to hear me instead of just see me on YouTube, this podcast is actually on Spotify. If you look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown, you can find it on Spotify. Just go to Spotify or Apple and look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown. All right, so hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live. And that's really important. All right, so here's what's interesting about this lawsuit. So I'm reading up on this, and it's really crazy. So Fox News is basically like Rupert Murdoch, who is the CEO, or not CEO, he's the chairman of the board at Fox, is basically on the stand doing something really fascinating. He's literally just saying, hey, you know what? We knew that the election was over. We knew that that the conspiracy theory had no validity. They're basically saying that we lied because we didn't want to alienate our advertisers. They're saying we lied because we didn't want to piss off our hosts. They said, we lied. We let the lie go on because we didn't want to alienate our base. And that really that's fascinating because in this lawsuit, in order to avoid losing the $1.6 billion judgment, they're basically destroying their credibility forever. Like Fox News right now in this suit is literally Rupert Murdoch. There he is. He's a wrinkly old guy from Australia or something. Fox News right now is basically killing all their credibility right now. They're literally just saying like, hey, we just make stuff up. We do it for money. We don't control our hosts. We're hostages to our base. And I just find that really sad and fascinating. Now, mind you, this was something that a lot of people have known for a long time. I mean, give me a yes in the chat if you always knew that Fox News is full of crap. Give me a yes if you've always felt like Fox News, as Big Eddie says, Big Eddie the Fifth. Are you really the fifth? Are you like Eddie the Fifth? If you are, that's so cool, man. Yeah, but how many of you knew Fox News was full of crap? How many of you knew Fox News was biased politically? How many of you knew Fox News was basically a voice box for the Republican Party? Give me a yes if you already knew that, right? We've known that for a long time. I used to go on Fox News a long time ago, over a decade ago. That was before I was aware of the political agendas of the various media outlets. And I just stopped going on Fox because I said, you guys are not even telling the truth. This is crazy. This was what happened maybe about 2010, 2011, something like that. Or when, I don't remember exactly when it was. But here's the thing. Here's something else I want to ask you all, though, that's really interesting about this as well. How many of you also, give me a yes if you also feel like CNN kind of stretches the truth a little bit sometimes? How many of y'all feel like, you know what? Yeah, Fox is full of crap. Yeah, Fox is full of liars. But CNN isn't exactly, CNN's a little Pinocchio-ish themselves. And MSNBC is a little Pinocchio-ish, especially during the pandemic, right? Especially during the pandemic where you were going around and you were actively discrediting Harvard and Stanford educated doctors over things like the jab. How many of y'all felt like CNN is also a little bit of a liar? How many of you feel like MSNBC is basically the liberal version of Fox News? That Rachel Maddow is just the liberal version of Tucker Carlson? I feel that way too. It's fascinating. I have half my family that watches Fox News, half because whether you know it or not, there are millions of conservative Black people who are not going along with everything that the Democrats say, right? And I respect them. I respect them very much. But then also, I have half my family that watches MSNBC, and they have more liberal views, and I respect them as well, right? And let me just tell you, I can tell what they've been watching on TV by the conversations they have. I can tell based on what they're focused on. Like if Rachel Maddow's really focused on a certain topic, I'll hear certain relatives repeating talking points on that topic. If Fox News is railing on a certain issue, I'll hear my Fox News family members railing on that same issue, right? So here's the deal. Here's what I need you to understand. This media is brainwashing. That's all it is. It's massive brainwashing, all for the sake, this is where I come in as a finance PhD, is all for the sake of profitability and corporate revenue. This is all for the sake of profitability. They're doing this for money. A lot of the pushing of the jabs, not to say you are a bad person if you got the shot. I don't care what you did. Do what you want to do. Honestly, do what you want to do. If you get the shot and it's supposed to really work, then you should be protected against all the idiots who didn't get the shot, right? Or if you didn't get the shot, then that means maybe you feel like your immune system can handle its business and it's going to be okay, right? So because I've seen both. I've seen people who died from the virus. I know people like that. I believe the virus was real. But then I know people who had some real health problems, and some died after getting that shot. I know a person 38-year-old who had a heart attack right after, got the shot. 2 days later, he's being rushed to the hospital for heart issues, which were well documented. So what my problem with the whole conversation was that there was such a lack of balance. And if you don't think that all this bias that you see in media is not driven by money, then you are out of your mind. It's all driven by money. The pharmaceutical companies pay big money. Anybody notice how Merck is doing commercials right now promoting jabs, and they have a Black woman's voice on the ad? Well, I just want my babies to be safe, and I need my children, and I would do nothing I would stop at nothing to protect my children. So I'm gonna make sure they all get their shots, right? This is brought to you by Merck. Right? Seriously. And again, I'm not making fun of you if you make a decision that's different from some people. All of y'all are different. I've uphold you, right? Some of you are pro, some of you are against, some of you have issues with the election, some of you like Trump, some of you like Biden. You can do whatever you want. I told you my position is freedom. I believe in Black freedom. And it's fascinating to me how that's such a threat to some people, that you have a Black guy with over 1 million followers who says, I just want Black people to do what they want to do. Like that literally, there are people that get mad at me. Why would you tell Black people to do what they want to do? And I'm like, Why would you think black people are just stupid, too stupid to make their own decision? You think that they need to be guided by white people? You think that they need a massa telling them how to vote? Well, that's pretty racist, don't you think? Don't you think that that's pretty anti-freedom? I don't know. Am I the only person who sees this? I hope I'm not the only one, because if so, then the brainwashing is deeper than I thought. And really, here's the other thing that's interesting too. It's a type of paternalism. You have a political paternalism. What do I mean by that? By paternalism, I'm talking about somebody who feels like they should be your parent. Like, you know how we do, like with our teenagers in the house, they're a little bit stupid sometimes. I ain't gonna lie. Teenagers, they growing, they're smart, but sometimes they just do stuff that's dumb. Well, me and my wife become paternalistic. We say, "Oh, I know you think you love this boy and you're gonna marry him one day, but we're gonna be paternalistic and make sure that boy ain't never in your bedroom with the door shut," right? So you have to be paternalistic sometimes when it comes to children or people that just don't have their mental faculties or don't know what the hell's going on. Um, they are very paternalistic toward the black community in the sense that they don't believe black people have the ability to make their own choices. They don't. That's why in every election, that's why, in fact, there was a higher up at Ebony Magazine back in the day. I don't know if this person still works there or not, who literally said, "We will not publish any articles by Dr. Boyce Watkins." And the reason that this lady at Ebony said this was because I had told black people that they don't have to be Democrats if they don't want to. They don't have to be Republicans if they don't want to. That abstaining from voting is also a legal strategy that is well documented through thousands of research papers in the political science literature. That abstaining is something the Congressional Black Caucus has done in order to make their point. So stop telling me that black people have to go vote for a Democrat or a Republican. That's stupid. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's oppressive. That's terrible. I hate it. Stop it. You're lying. You're full of crap. It makes me mad. And so ultimately, I've had black people, prominent black people, say, "Well, you can't tell black people to just do what they want to do, doc, because they don't know what's going on." So ultimately, the brainwashing runs deep in this country. And what I would encourage you to do is turn it all off. I'm gonna just say, give me a yes or no if you have done something similar. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch MSNBC. I don't even watch CNN anymore. I used to think CNN was the most trusted name in news, and then at some point they decided to get in on the circus that used to be called journalism. It used to be called journalism, but now it's become an entertainment circus. Now it's become as ridiculous as hip hop, as the hip hop industry, right? Yeah, really, it's just a circus. I don't watch either one. I just don't. If you can't give me just straight facts and let me make my own decision, then I don't want to hear from you. I don't need your spin. I don't need your interpretation. I don't need you telling me what to think, because here's the problem. Again, this circles back to money. This is why you guys know that's my thing. That's my superpower. So I see the money in everything. A lot of these corporations are saying these things in order to get money. There's massive money behind the promotion of those jabs. These you really think these $100 billion pharmaceutical companies are not writing gigantic checks to politicians to get them to convince you to do certain things? I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma recently, and there was a Congressional Black Caucus event that I just chose not to go to because they were literally 2 years later in 2023 asking every single guest to go and fill out some sort of form to get into some sort of national database to get some sort of passport that you need in order to get into their events, showing that you have your shots. And I was like, I'm just going to resist this. I'm not even going to tell you what I personally chose to do. I'm just going to resist this because it's bullshit. I know where this is coming from. Somebody wrote you a damn check and they got you still on this stuff, and you're not even giving people the ability to make their own choices. And as a result, nobody really came to the event. It was poorly attended because people were like, "No, I'm not doing that." So ultimately, I'm not making fun of anybody based on what choice you made. I hope you understand. Give me a yes if you understand what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm not advocating for anything other than for you to do what's best for you. And if you think there's something wrong with me saying do what's best for you, do what's best for your family, be black first, family first, you first. If you think there's something wrong with that, then there's something wrong with you. I can't help you. There's nothing more I can really do. I don't know where people are going with this nonsense. So the money's moving everything. Fox News is on the stand right now in this lawsuit, basically saying that They were saying things for money. They brought on this guy, this guy who sells pillows, and they called Mike the Pillow Guy or something. And they kept bringing him on, and he was promoting a conspiracy theory that they knew was a lie, and they did it because Mike the Pillow Guy was writing checks. Right? It's always about the Benjamins. It's always about the money. And the worst thing that America has done is a couple things. One, you make your journalism is driven by capitalism. That means that the networks that really try to tell the truth, what was it, C-SPAN, tries to tell you the truth. They try to give you the facts. Even PBS, they're a little bit on the liberal side, but I don't mind it. They at least try to be unbiased and give you the facts. You have a couple other media outlets out there that will tell you the truth. That's really not as interesting as somebody who's just going to tell you what you want to hear. And so this should probably be regulated. It never will be because your politicians are bought and paid for. But the fact that the journalism has become capitalist is not a good thing. The fact that your healthcare system has become capitalist is not a good thing. And there's a spillover because if you go to the left side and you see all these conversations about the jab that are driven by money, it's driven by the fact that pharmaceutical companies are like, hey, wait a minute. If we get a government contract where the government will write us a $50 billion or $10 billion check to push these shots to the public, then we need to fund these politicians' campaigns so they'll get reelected, so they will pass the bills that will give us the money that we deserve. So we're going to keep funding them. We're going to make their pockets fat. Next thing you know, politicians come out saying something that is absolute BS. Even the student loan conversation is driven by campaign finance issues. Even the student loan conversation is honestly, it's sometimes you get to the point where you just know too much and you understand too much. And it makes you sound crazy when you come out and you talk about what's really going on. I'm gonna be the first to admit that sometimes when I talk, I probably sound like super far-fetched, like it's coming from another planet. But I know too much, right? I know too much about finance and capitalism. I've been teaching finance at the college level for 30 years, so I see what's going on financially. And so one of the things that's really fascinating, even with the student loan conversation, where they're going to forgive, allegedly, they're going to try to forgive $10,000 worth of your student loans, which is, for some of you, that's just a joke because your student loan debt's like $100,000, but whatever, right? I told you guys how student loan debt is an illegitimate debt to begin with. Universities shouldn't be charging the amount of money that they charge. It's really kind of crazy. It's almost criminal. Well, the reason that that's a money conversation, let me explain why that's a money conversation. Well, think about this. 30 years ago, if you had a debt you didn't like, answer this question for me. If I had a debt that I couldn't pay, I could go to a lawyer and I could declare something. What was that word? So type that word in the chat as you hit the thumbs up button. Type that word in the chat. What could you do? You could declare blank. This is a pop quiz. Because we're getting ready for the Black Wealth Boot Camp in Los Angeles. BoyceWatkins.com. Go to my website if you want to join us in LA. I'll be there for 2 days. We're going to do a deep dive. It's on my new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. So, all right, so let's do our first pop quiz. You declare, as Veronica says, and Leslie Chase says, bankruptcy, right? If you didn't like a debt, you could just go to a lawyer and say, hey, Attorney Smith, I don't like this debt. I want to get rid of it. Can I declare bankruptcy, right? And the lawyer will say, sure, fill out this paperwork, and the debt will be gone. Now your credit's going to be jacked up. You're going to be toxic for a little while, but maybe that's better than having this massive debt over your head that you cannot repay. Well, who do you think was one of the people that received money? Remember, the operative word here is money. These are displays of economic power in terms of understanding how these systems work. That's why sometimes I may seem like I'm talking about something that's not related to money, but in America, it's a capitalist society. About 80-90% of everything that drives America is related to money, just to be honest with you. All right. So it's an easy connection. So Biden is getting money from banks and other entities that are basically saying, hey, we want you to pass a law that says that the American people cannot declare bankruptcy on their student loans. So, because think about this. Do you think that voters were asking for this? Like, would you have called your congresswoman and said, or your congressman and said, hey, I need you to really pass a law that says that I can never declare bankruptcy on my student loans? Is that something that you think the American people asked for? I'm speaking slowly on this point because I want y'all to get it, to understand how the money drives everything. The answer is no. Nobody in their right mind would have been like, no, we really want you to pass a law that's going to put us in an economic trap. that's going to lock us into economic slavery, where I've got to go sit on the corporate plantation for the next 40 years, paying off an illegitimate debt that I accumulated during college, getting a college degree that is now pretty much worthless, that was overpriced from the beginning because it shouldn't have cost me $40,000 a year to go to college. It should have been more like $5,000 or $10,000 a year, because they could have done it for that price, but they kept jacking up the price because the money was readily available, right? Money, there's that word again, right? So the American people did not ask Joe Biden and Bill Clinton, he was another one, to push through legislation to block people from declaring bankruptcy on their student loans. This is all about the money. So what is just really fascinating to me is those who don't understand politics, those who don't understand history, those who don't remember or have some sort of understanding of what the Bidens and others were doing 30 years ago in terms of student loans, mass incarceration, stuff like that. You're literally giving this guy credit for cleaning up messes that he himself created. He literally took, it's like somebody showing up at your house and stealing $10,000 from you. And then 3 months later, they come back and they give you a $100 gift certificate. And you're like, thank you so much. You're such a nice guy, right? People who aren't smart are going to say, oh my God, he's such a good guy. Wow, that's so amazing. I appreciate you doing that, because I was in such a bad situation because somebody took my money. But you don't reflect on who took your money in the first place. So Biden is, doing the student loan thing. He's going to forgive $10,000 worth. He didn't really want to do it, but he's going to do it. Okay. But remember, if he had never, ever pushed through legislation to make it illegal for you to declare bankruptcy on your loans, then you would have 100% forgiveness on your student loans. That every penny of that $80, $90, $100,000 that you owe could be wiped out completely. You could start with a clean slate. Sure, you'd have bad credit for many, many years, but guess what? There are people that'll still, if you're on your grind and you have a business or you're making extra money or a side hustle or whatever, there are people that will still loan you money even with a bankruptcy on your record. That is 100% true. Because think about it. When you had the debt, you were even more toxic than you might be with the bankruptcy. At least the debt, the monkey is off your back and you're moving forward in a more constructive way. So I really just think that in general, this Fox News lawsuit is a reflection of how a lot of our politics, a lot of our media is driven by money. I'm a big fan of understanding money, because money is most of the shackles and the chains that control Black people in America are chains that are made out of gold. Most of the shackles that control Black people in America are chains that are made out of gold, meaning that it is the bankers, it is the corporations, it is the universities, it is the media. So these other systems and institutions that ultimately put those shackles on you, and they do it from birth, where they indoctrinate you into a system where you're built to be a corporate slave. And they lock you in with massive amounts of student loan debt that wasn't completely necessary, so that you are forced to serve the corporation for the rest of your life instead of serving your family, instead of doing the things that I want you to do, which is to turn around and work on that family business, to turn around and build some generational wealth, to turn around and connect with your babies, connect with your parents, connect with your cousins, connect with your siblings, connect with other Black people, so you can build institutions in which you are the primary benefactor and not somebody else. It is a damn crime and a shame, and it costs Black people about $5 trillion every generation. At least $5 trillion a generation you're giving away from the fact that you're training your children to grow up and work for white people, and you're considering that to be a source of pride. This is all driven through various forms of propaganda, like, for example, movies that celebrate Jackie Robinson abandoning the Negro Leagues to go play next to white people who wanted to spit on him. Somehow that's a promotion for him, that now, before you were loved and supported, now you're going to go get spit on by white folks. How in the hell, how backward does your brain have to be for you to think that that you're being promoted, when you go from a situation where you're loved and protected and supported and still making money and have ownership, to a situation where you own nothing, you're being mistreated, you might get a couple extra dollars again, but at the same time, it's a horrible quality of life. You're being traumatized. You're getting death threats now. People hate your guts, and you're like, but I'm so successful. You should be like me. You're literally you're literally passing the virus of generational trauma onto other young Black children. Think about this. This is like I look at this like a virus. Like, you literally have, like, your brainwashing has caused you to be infected with the virus of trauma and you're passing it down to you're infecting your children. You're saying somehow you're convincing them that the best thing they can do with their lives is to go spend all their time in an environment where they are going to be so mistreated, so disrespected, so hated on that they're going to need a therapist and a bottle of liquor just to make it through the night. Why in the world would you pass that to your kids? Why would you pass that emotional STD onto your kids? I don't want my kids to go through nothing horrible that I went through. I don't want my kids to go through any type of situation I went through where I was not happy, where I was not loved. I don't want my kids to ever be in an environment where they are tolerated and not appreciated. So why in the world do we think that somehow being next to the man is a sign of success? Well, because that's what somebody taught us. Somebody passed that emotional STD onto us. They passed that trauma onto us. And we're like, oh, okay, well, you were traumatized every single day of your life. So I'm Black too. So that means I'm supposed to be traumatized also. So you got to change the whole game when it comes to how you think about your education. You got to think about your economics differently. You got to think about your family structure differently. I just saw a study the other day. Actually, before I mention this, do me a favor. Can you please hit the thumbs up button? Thumbs up. That's really important. That really helps us. Share, subscribe. Also, there's a lecture I put together called How to Make Money Without Working. This relates to the use of stock options. Actually, I'm really big. I love stock options and selling them. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com if you'd like to take a look at that presentation. It's called How to Make Money Without Working. Also, I'll be in Los Angeles March 10th and 11th doing a Black Wealth Boot Camp, a 2-day intensive training where I'm going to use my new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, which is a blueprint for anybody that wants to build generational wealth in a way that will make you an economic Superman or a superwoman. Like literally, there are keys, there are approaches to building wealth that literally create a scenario where you literally have access to immortality, in the sense that you, instead of passing these emotional STDs and these economic STDs to your kids, you're actually passing down something that's going to empower them, something that's going to make them strong, something that's going to make sure they're secure. And it's easy for anybody in this room. I don't care how poor you are. If you plan far enough ahead, it's very easy for you to put your kids in a situation where they never have to work for anybody. They don't even talk about dream jobs because it doesn't even make sense to dream about labor. Nobody dreams about spending 40 hours a week at a corporation like that. So there's no such thing as a dream job. I don't want them to have a dream job. I want your kids to have a dream. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't want them to have a dream job. I need your kids to have a dream, and I want that dream to become reality. It's doable, but it requires some planning. I can help you with that. So feel free to join us in LA, March 10th. You can fly in. You can go to boycewatkins.com to learn more. All right. So here's the one thing that I saw that gave me hope. I know we started talking about Fox News and their lawsuit and money and how that drives media, but I want to talk about you as we end this conversation. I saw this study that said that the percentage of Black families that are now homeschooling their kids has increased dramatically. That literally it was maybe 3.5% before the pandemic. Now it's like 16%. 18%, something like that. I thought that was phenomenal. I thought that was awesome. That's what you need to do. Here's the thing. The best way to overcome systematic racism, riddle me this. What's the best way to overcome systematic racism? It's to get out of that system. just get out of the system. If you're in a building that is burning, and there's toxic fumes everywhere and carbon monoxide poisoning everywhere in that building, what are you going to do if you're in a building that's burning down? What do you do? So the building's on fire. There's toxic fumes everywhere. There's rat poison everywhere. People in the building are dying. What do you do if you're in that building? You get out of the building. You leave. You just get out. Right. So when you're inside a structure or an institution that is filled with toxic energy, that is filled with generational trauma, that is filled with all kinds of stress for you, all kinds of unhappiness, all kinds of misery, all kinds of pain, all kinds of chaos, you get out of the damn building. Right. That's what you do. But what integration unfortunately trained us to believe falsely is that you need white folks in order for you. I'm going to show you all this shirt because we're Black. Because we're Black, we got to think differently. Because we're Black, we got to elevate our thinking. Because we're Black, we got to kind of hit a curveball or two. We have to play chess, not checkers, right? So this is why I put this on this shirt. If you go to wokeblacktees.com, I think that there's a copy of the shirt up there. Wokeblacktees.com, WOKE. But anyway, so the thing is, it took me a long time to figure that out. Think about this. I was 40 years old with a PhD when I realized, hold on, we don't actually have to do any of this stuff. You don't have to be around white folks. You don't have to actually be around people that don't like you. This is not anti-white. If you're white, don't be offended. I'm not talking about you if you're a good person. You don't have to tolerate white supremacy. You don't have to do a Jackie Robinson and say, well, I'm going to let them spit on me and kick me in the head and cuss me out and threaten to kill my whole family. But I'm going to tolerate it with a smile. Right? Right? Where do you think mental illness ends up coming from? A lot of the mental health issues come from the fact that that's not natural. It's not normal to be in the space where you're hated. It's not normal to send your children to schools that are not educating them. There are 55. Lori Lightfoot, who is a handsome young gentleman that ran Chicago. Lori Lightfoot is now out of office, and part of the reason that she's gone is because Chicago has 55 schools that do not have one single child that can read or do math at grade level. 55 schools. That is the most horrific record that any institution can have. But yet somehow you've been convinced that you have to send your children to places like this to get their education. No, you don't. No, you don't. There's millions of Black families that are saying, you know what? If white folks can educate my children, I can educate my children. After all, they are your children. My goddaughter just had a baby, and I said, you're the number one educator of your kids, not these schools, not the public school system. You're the primary influencer on these kids. You and your husband, y'all are the ones who hold it down and shape their thinking. The only way somebody else is going to shape their thinking is if you hand the keys to their brain over to somebody else, right? So ultimately, I just encourage you to have a little bit of confidence. You got access to scholars right here on the internet. Me, Dr. Claude Anderson, there's plenty of others out here. There's tons of resources available. You can educate your kids, and you're going to do a better job because you're also going to love them. The public school system does not love Black children. So again, that's why I don't really get involved with debates over whether or not critical race theory should be taught in public schools, because I feel like even if they teach it, they're going to teach it wrong. Even if they're teaching Black history, they're going to teach the wrong Black history. They ain't teaching Black history. They're teaching whack history. They're going to teach your kids all kinds of whack history disguised as Black history, and your kids going to grow up with whack-ass thinking. There's nothing more dangerous than a highly educated buffoon that came out of a racist school system, taught a whole bunch of whack history, that thinks that they're smarter than everybody else. Then they come back to the Black community with their poisoned minds, and they end up doing a Mark Lamont Hill and pouring a bunch of stupid ideas on Black people that you got from some institution that taught you a bunch of whack history and a bunch of whack information. Seriously. So what I'm saying to you is, overall, as human beings who have an equity stake in your future, I'm asking you to consider a little bit of what I'm saying. You ain't got to consider it all. You ain't got to buy into it lock, stock, and barrel. I'm not here to replace your oppressor and tell you what to do. What I am here to help you consider is that when you trace racism in America, when you trace oppression in America, when you trace the mistreatment of Black people in America, what you'll find is that there are certain key institutions that are run by people who are not Black that are consistently connected to the oppression that Black people feel on a daily basis. One is the educational system. It's a massive indoctrination factory that's preparing your child for either prison or the corporate plantation. Number two, media. Media is where they repeat the same message over and over again, where they'll pour toxic hip hop music into the ears of Black boys, make them all want to grow up and become drug addicts, thugs, prison inmates, irresponsible baby daddies, or whatever. And they do this on repeat, and they play it on every radio station across America, to the point where you lose $1 trillion in wealth because your children that could have been great, that could have brought wealth to the community, that could have been great assets to you, now become toxic liabilities. And you get thugs running around the hood, raping little girls, beating people up, shooting people down, shooting little kids on their tricycles, and you don't even talk about it because It's not sanctioned by CNN. CNN wasn't talking about it, so you don't talk about it. Little girl gets shot in the hood the same week George Floyd dies. You talking about George Floyd because CNN's talking about it, but you ain't talking about the little girl that died in the hood. How dare you? Shame on you. That's crazy to me. That makes no sense. What are other institutions? Let's see. We talked about the education system. You have media. You got the criminal justice system, which we know historically has had a lot of issues, not just from police brutality. That's a surface issue. More deeply, you've got millions of people that are still under the thumb of of mass incarceration created by Joe Biden and others during the 1990s. The question I want you to ask is, out of all the people that we're fighting for in terms of these police shootings, how systematically are we approaching the fact that there are still tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of men and women that are still incarcerated, that are still prisoners of war from the mass incarceration campaign of Joe Biden in the 1990s? Some kid, and there's a million of them, who got a 50-year sentence or whatever, or 25 to life on a 3 strikes law. Remember, Biden started all this, is still locked up right now. He's still in prison right now saying, what about me? What about me? Well, you're not paying attention to him because all you're paying attention to is you're being triggered by the latest police shooting that CNN decides to talk about. And then they say, this is why you got to vote for the Democrats. And you think that voting for the Democrats is going to help you solve the very serious and insidious criminal justice issue. And that is simply not true. If you want to know, if you want my evidence of this, then ask yourself, how much have they actually solved these problems? How many hoods in America can I go through that are run by our political allies, so to speak, that are actually safe, wonderful places for our children to be raised, where there's prosperity, where there's investment, where there's growth, where there's educational possibilities being reached? How many hoods like that are there in America? There aren't hardly any. There aren't hardly any. So that this shows you that the problems aren't being solved. So you got the education system, you got the media, you got the criminal justice system, then you got the economic system, the corporate plantation. A lot of the universities, for example, that take your family debt by convincing you that you start in the undergrad or high school, and then they tell you, well, now you got to go to college. So then you go to college, you go $150,000 in debt, and you get this degree that pays you $50,000 a year, and you can't repay the $150,000. So then you have to go serve that next institution, which is the corporate plantation, where they zap you of your wealth, they zap you of your time, they zap you of your spirit, they zap you of your youth, they zap you of all your energy, and then you work yourself into the great. Now remember, you're being cheered on the entire time because they're giving you the Jackie Robinson cheer because you're the first Black middle manager to ever work at Toyota or something, right? So you're feeling good because you're like, look at me, I've been validated, I've been stamped and labeled as somebody who's successful on the corporate plantation. But at the same time, you're living paycheck to paycheck, you have no generational wealth, you don't understand anything about how to build a legacy for your family. So you're working yourself until the point where you eventually just die at your desk, or maybe you retire and they give you a gold watch, and then you die and you leave nothing, or you leave very little assets to your family. And then your children start the whole cycle all over again, right? So what you have to do is look at some of those systems and just say, okay, I'm going to withdraw from some of those systems. You don't have to be on the corporate plantation. Your children do not ever have to work for anybody ever. So when people say things like, if you don't work, you don't eat, that's kind of true. You have to work to build something, but you don't have to work at a job in order to eat. There's many ways to eat without just going to work every day. When you talk about the criminal justice system, what I tend to do is I tend to just sort of believe in the idea of trying your best to make good decisions, avoid hanging out with losers. We talk about talking to children. We talked about watching the situations that you're in. If you meet a police officer, make sure you're respectful so you can get out of the situation. If you're talking about having wealth, have some wealth and income so that in case you do need a lawyer, you could afford a good one and not just end up going to jail because you don't have enough money to fight the case, right? The criminal justice system is a tough one, but there are ways to minimize your incidence of interacting with that system, right? So this narrative, there's a false narrative out there that says that any young Black man doing anything anywhere a cop can run up on you and just shoot you in the head just because the police just want to kill Black people every single day for a living. I know a lot of cops. I don't believe that to be true. I know a lot of good Black cops that I went to kindergarten with who say, I don't know why people think that we wake up every morning saying, how am I going to kill a Black man today? That's just not the case. I'm not saying cops are all good. I'm not saying the system's not problematic. I'm not saying that there isn't a massive amount of corruption. I know about that too. I know the blue wall better than most people. I understand that. The police department in many cases is the biggest gang in the city. We know this, right? So this is real. However, you can't tell me that it is helping the process when you are mass promoting music. Pay attention now. Give me a yes if you understand what I'm saying. You can't tell me it's helping when you are mass promoting music that is encouraging young Black men to engage in criminal behavior. You can't tell me that there isn't something to be said about the fact that I've never once has anybody ever heard of a member of the Nation of Islam being shot by a cop? Is there any member of the nation in the last 20, 30 years? Now, I'm not talking about the 60s, right? 60s was a different time. Go back to 1990. Have you seen any scenario where a member of the Nation of Islam was just walking down the street and a cop rolled up on him and just took him out? Anybody? Why is that? Is it because they got lucky? Is it because the police just like those people, but they don't like any other black people? Like what's going on here? Well, if you look at the Nation of Islam, look at how they operate. I mean, I'm talking about the good brothers and the good sisters in the group. There's exceptions to every rule, I'm sure, but look at the code of behavior they have. They don't run around putting themselves in situations that are going to make them vulnerable. You're not going to see I've never seen a member of the Nation of Islam walking down the street high and drunk, or getting into stupid situations where they run around thugging it out or whatever. Again, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to judge anybody, but at the same time, you have to judge something. At some point, you have to set a standard. At some point, you got to say, man, you know what? Don't get me wrong. I didn't like what happened to this person, George Floyd or whoever, but I'm going to have a conversation with my kids about drugs, or putting yourself in situations where you are vulnerable in a country that has declared war on you as a black man. You're at war. No soldier goes to battle high and drunk. No soldier goes to battle making himself vulnerable to his enemy without expecting to be killed for that. Right. So when you are out there, and this is a conversation that is not politically correct, because they train you to be a victim. They want you to be a victim. They want you to feel sorry for yourself. They want you to just run around scared to death. They want you to be a beta to the white man's alpha. That's what they want for your men. They want the black man to be a beta to the white man's alpha. What do I mean by that? Well, think about this. I'm a man and he's a man, but yet I'm running around saying, well, I'm scared. He's gonna come get me. He's gonna hurt me. He's gonna take my job. He's gonna come shoot me. Oh my God, Lord Jesus. Right? So I'm a man and he's a man, but we're clearly not equal. I'm the beta, he's the alpha. He just runs around and says, okay, boy, if you get out of line, I'm gonna shoot you. Right? And we're like, I was thinking about how Black Lives Matter, and it made me cry, and it just makes me sad. And I'm just telling you, that ain't the mentality that's going to help your children survive. That's not going to help it. That's going to put them in a box where they feel like a victim every day. They're going to be scared to death. They're going to think that everything that happens to them is out of their control, and that is about the most stressful position you can ever be in. Like, if you ever want to feel stressed out in life, sit around and convince yourself that there's nothing you can do to improve your situation. That will literally make you so depressed that you'll want to go jump off a building. I watched this documentary on Netflix about this black race car driver named Bubba Wallace. I got into race car driving because I was invited down to the Daytona 500 by the Urban Youth Racing School, which is literally the number one spot for black people that want to get into race car driving. Michelle Martin and her husband Anthony run that institution. They've really helped a lot of kids. So I went down there and I got into race car driving, right? And I started watching this documentary on Netflix about a driver named Bubba Wallace. And now Bubba is half black, half white, and he also talks like a country boy. Like he talks like somebody named Bubba from Alabama. And anyway, he drives for Michael Jordan's race team, right? So so Bubba Wallace was in the middle of the whole Black Lives Matter situation, right? And Bubba, being conscientious and everything, he was wearing the shirts that said "I can't breathe" and and stuff like that, and really spoke up against the use of the Confederate flag at the NASCAR races and all that. So good for him. But here's what was interesting, right? Bubba talks to his white daddy, and he says they found a noose. Allegedly they found a noose in the garage. Now the FBI says it was nothing, but there are people on that other side that say no, it was really a noose. I don't know. I don't care. But he tells him that there was a noose found and that he was getting death threats. You know what his daddy said to him? His daddy said, "You got a gun?" And he said, "No." He said, "You need to get one." He said, "All right." And I thought that was really fascinating, because on the other side, his mother, who's black, she was praying for him, crying for him, and he was feeling this pressure of being black, being a black NASCAR driver. which ultimately led to, and it did not surprise me one bit when they had one episode where they talked about how depressed he was, right? How he was depressed almost to the point of being suicidal or having these severe mental health issues. And I'm not saying, I can't speculate on this. I don't know Bubba Wallace. I don't know the details of everything that he went through. But what I'm telling you is that there is a connection between Black victimhood and depression. Give me a yes if you can understand this connection. You understand what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that there aren't things that are happening that you should be concerned about. No question about it. But do you understand that there's a connection between running around saying, woe is me, oh my gosh, they gonna come get me, there's nothing I can do, and then feeling depressed? Like, gosh, I'm depressed now because I've taken, especially for men, my Lord Jesus, like, you're taking everything inside of you. Your testosterone is supposed to defend you. Your testosterone is what makes you go to war. Your testosterone is supposed to what makes you as a man stand up and say, no, you come get me, I'm gonna come get you. Yeah, I got a gun. You come on with that white supremacy nonsense, and we'll see who walks away, who's able to walk away from that conversation, right? We'll see who's standing after the confrontation's over with, right? That's what testosterone does for you. But what they do, again, this is where I say that they want the Black man to be the beta to the white man's alpha in America, is they take all that away from you. And next thing you know, you're sitting there and your head's down and you're praying and you're crying and you're crying. Literally, you're a man crying in front of your adversary. Imagine if the Kansas City Chiefs were playing against the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, and the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes gets hit real hard by some big linebacker that takes him out, and then he starts crying, and he says, it's just so hard to play football. Every time I try to throw the ball, they be cheating, they be coming in, and they be hitting me hard, and it hurts. It hurts. My ankle, I was crying last night because my ankle was hurting so bad. You can't do that. You cannot do that on the battlefield. You cannot do that in a competition. Race and racism is nothing but a competition where you are the biggest loser. You're the one that's predetermined to be the loser. Because they're training you not to stand up for yourself. They're training you not to fight back. So I actually liked when Bubba talked to his daddy, not to put this white guy on a pedestal, but he's like, he comes from this savage culture from the deep South, or they like, if somebody fucks with your family, you go get a gun and you go deal with that, right? Even if you think you're gonna lose, you get strapped up, you get ready for battle, and if you die on the battlefield, then so be it. Right? And so he said, so when he told him about the noose and his dad and the death threats, his daddy said, you got a gun? He said, nope. He said, you need to get one. All right. Right? And I like that answer, honestly. And I'm biased because that's the answer my father would give me. If I called my father whining and complaining about what another man does to me, or how another man treats me, or how I'm scared that another man's going to hurt me, he's not the one that's going to sit there and feel sorry for me. He's going to come up with a solution. He's not going to sit there and cry and pray with me. He's going to say, okay, after we finish, maybe we might pray together, but after we pray, we're going to go handle his business. They're going to be the prey after we finish praying. Because unfortunately, sometimes all that praying makes you into the prey, right? So I'm not saying that none of this is legitimate. I'm not going to sit here and say that there isn't real racial discrimination in America. I talk about it all the time. I can break it down and dissect it quite well. I've experienced it extremely well. I'm a Black boy from Kentucky. I know what it feels like to not have opportunities. I know what it feels like to have somebody not like you. I know what it feels like to know that there's a glass ceiling that comes with being Black. I know what it's like. My biggest fear in the 1990s actually was dying or going to prison. Like, I didn't even do anything wrong. I was in college, not breaking any laws. But that was my biggest fear was that one day I'd be in the wrong car with the wrong person and get shot, or somebody that I know is somebody that's dealing drugs and I don't even know that they're dealing is going to connect me and I get caught on a RICO charge and end up with 30 years in prison. These were my fears, back when I was younger, right? So I understand all of this racism, but the perspective that I'm submitting to you to consider is that you don't have to deal with it the way that these white people on TV tell you to deal with it. You don't have to do what they tell you to do. When the way CNN talks about the police shootings or whatever, you don't have to respond the way they tell you to respond. That is just another form of white supremacy. There are liberals who are just as committed to white supremacy and the controlling of Black people as there are conservatives who are committed to that. And I'm not even mad at them, because what they're doing is they're saying, if you're stupid enough to let us use you to achieve our goals, then by all means, we will take whatever help we can get. If you are crazy enough to give your wealth to help our families do better financially, then by all means, we're going to take the money every single day of the week. And I don't blame them one bit. They say that if you care so little about yourself that you want to support us because you see us as being better than you, then we're going to allow you to run right with that narrative. And then the best thing we're going to do for you is to invite you into our space and validate you in a way that you have somehow been convinced that you cannot validate yourself. That's why a lot of the so-called fight against racial discrimination consists of Black people running around begging white people to accept them. It consists of Black people running around. Again, I'm going to tell you this. My wife is a therapist who's an expert in the subconscious mind. She said when everybody was wearing those shirts that said, "I can't breathe," I think it was after Eric Garner or I think it was Eric Garner. She said, that is very bad for your subconscious mind. She said, that's very bad for you to run around and constantly say, "I can't breathe," because your subconscious mind picks that up. And next thing you know, you're having severe mental health issues over the fact that mentally you're thinking, "I can't breathe." Right. The other thing that she mentioned that I thought was interesting is that when you're watching all these traumatic videos of Black people being beaten and shot and killed, it is scaring the shit out of you every day, to the point where you're becoming emotionally paralyzed. It is traumatizing to you. There are so many people who have well-behaved children who will never have a problem with anybody, who've never even met a cop, where their mothers are saying, "Oh my God, I am so afraid that every time my son walks out that door, he's gonna get killed by a cop." Right now, I'm not saying that can't occur, but you got to consider the fact that you probably don't even know anybody who's ever been killed by a cop. However, what you do probably know is you probably know some Black person who was killed, by a thug, killed in the hood. I know many. I don't know a single Black man that's been shot by a white police officer. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm saying I don't know anybody who's gone through that. However, I know many, many Black dudes who got shot because they went to the club and started dating somebody's baby's mama, or they stepped on somebody's foot, and the guy got mad because he was disrespected and he was on some gangster shit and decided to just pull out a gun, and because that's what rappers do. Right. I know many stories. I can tell you 1,000 stories like that. I can tell you a lot of stories about Black boys especially Black boys who were minding their own business, living a good life, making good choices, being killed by cops. Now I can tell you about guys that weren't making good choices who had tough interactions with the police. I can tell you that. I can tell you, I know some dope dealers and all that. Right. And so again, I'm not telling you how to judge these situations. I'm just here to help you understand that every situation is different. And I think that we forget that, right? We see two triggers that media gives us: white cop, Black man. Then we make all these assumptions. I'm not a fan of that. I kind of want to know, well, what was really going on here? Did these two people know each other? Like, what was happening here? Or even in the Memphis situation. I mean, the Memphis situation, let me tell you what was going on with Memphis. I think that's a good point, Bob, that you brought that up. The Memphis situation, where you had the 5 Black cops that beat the Black guy to death. First of all, obviously, I don't think they wanted to kill him, right? I think that they wanted to beat him up. I think that it sounded like it was over a woman, and it sounded like it was the abuse of police authority, right? And again, there is a white supremacist sort of connection in this situation, in the sense that this authority that they had was given to them by the state. So unfortunately, some Black police officers go into the position of being kind of an overseer, right? And they end up getting power from massa to come in to the slave den and tell the other slaves what to do, right? And so that abuse of police authority seemed to stem from some type of jealousy scenario over one of the cops and his girlfriend, wife, baby mama, whatever she was. And then the other cops got involved because police, again, being the biggest gang in the city, they have this sort of connection and loyalty to each other where they just back each other up no matter what. I'm sure the other cops are regretting this right now. But remember, it's kind of like if you're in a gang, if you're a Crip or a Blood, and one of your friends says, "Let's go beat up this other guy from another gang," or whatever, you're supposed to, in many cases, kind of follow along or support your friend, right? So you jump in without even really knowing the situation, right? So I personally think that that's the better conversation to have in Memphis than the simple-minded conversation that says that these black cops just wake up every morning thinking, let's go find a black person to kill today. I think this was a battle among men. I've seen it happen before. I've seen many situations. How many of you have ever seen a guy that wanted to kick another guy's ass because that guy was dating his woman? How many of you have ever seen that? How many of you have ever seen two men fighting over a woman? That's what it is. That's literally what it was. It's just one guy had more power than the other one, right? That's what it is. One guy had, 5 homeboys that backed him up. The other one didn't. Apparently, his homeboys were not available at the time to back him up. And then one has the power of the state behind him, right? So that means that if they both go to court, people are going to believe the cop over the citizen, which that right there does reflect a problem, but it's not the problem that you think. And the resentment that I have in any of these conversations is I don't want CNN and MSNBC telling me what to think, because I know that what they're going to do is they're going to take the narrative and shape it and twist it to fit their agenda. So they're going to end up, okay, this is what happened. It was racism and da-da-da-da-da-da. And this is why you got to vote for Joe Biden in the next election, right? That's what they do. They spin everything that matters for you, every subtle issue where you are required to have a conversation in your community about how to deal with certain things. And then they spin it back and they bring it back to white supremacy. Just, this is why you need us as your parents. And we're your white parents, and you need us telling you what to do in every election so that you don't have these things happen to you. And then you do what you're told, and then you find out that the problem never goes away. That's because they never intended on actually solving the problem. The problem of violence in Black communities will really only be solved when Black people are really committed to solving it. The problem of Black wealth being lost in Black communities will only be solved when Black people become committed to independently solving this problem without interference from your so-called allies. The problem of educating Black children will only be solved when you understand how ridiculously toxic and harmful it is that you're handing all your children off to these systems that are just as bad as the police, and they're bringing your kids to these places where they're getting beat up, put into special ed, and being miseducated for 18 years, and then tossed out into a competitive capitalist society with no survival skills whatsoever. Can't even get a job at McDonald's because they can't even work the cash register, right? So if you don't ever get the self-esteem, this is where it circles back to just a Black-only conversation. If you don't get the self-esteem to commit to solving your own problems, they will never, ever be solved, because there's always going to be somebody who says, oh, I'll solve your problem. Oh, you're dumb and Black. I have a solution because, I'm white and that makes me special. Here's what I think you should do. You should vote for so-and-so. Or here, you should buy this thing from from us, or you should let us create jobs for you. Right. A lot of times in elections, they would always talk about, like, we need to get more Black people jobs. We need Black people to get more jobs. Right. So they give you solutions that serve their interests, not your interest at all. You're not the entity that matters. You are the beta to their alpha. They're the leader. You're the follower. They drive the bus. They own the bus. They control the bus. You're just lucky to get a seat in the back. So I'm not riding in the back of the bus. That's just what it is. So anyway, I'm going to go. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Later on, we are having a stock market investing class very soon, I think in an hour and a half or so from now. We do that every Tuesday typically, but today we're going to do it on Friday. And if you'd like to join us or for anything that we're doing, go to boycewatkins.com. Also, if you go to boycewatkins.com, we have financial flashcards for children and financial workbooks. They cover every grade level. We don't just talk about the problems, we solve them. I'm a mathematician. I believe in solving problems, not just complaining about them. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. Also, if you'd like to join us in Los Angeles at the Black Wealth Bootcamp, then feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. You can get a pass. I don't think there'll be passes at the door. I think we're pretty close to selling out all the slots. But if you'd like to come in, we're going to cover my new book called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, which you can also get a copy at Amazon or at my website. So feel free to go take a look at all these resources. We don't need anybody else's institutions or universities or whatever. We have that covered. There are plenty of experts in your community who can teach you everything that you need to know. And I really think this is going to lead you to better outcomes long term. You got to do it yourself, Black people. You cannot lean on the Jackie Robinson effect, because you saw how traumatized Jackie Robinson was. And I don't want us to be traumatized. I want us to be strong. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. Thank you for listening. And I will check back in with you guys a little bit later. And I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day. Take care now. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.